who was gracious enough to co-star with me in that same picture. Thank you.
Hollywood sure knew how to make stars shine. But what if behind all that glamour, there was fear, secrets, and flat-out madness? In this video, 9 true stories they'd never dare show you in a classic film, and believe me, real Hollywood was stranger than any script. The $60,000 smile, Clark Gable. They called him the King of Hollywood, a man who could melt the screen with a look and silence a theater with a smirk. But that famous smile, his trademark charm, was completely fake. By age 32, Gable had lost most of his teeth to gum disease and botched dental work. MGM couldn't let their leading man look human. So they had custom dentures made, worth around 60 grand in today's money. They looked great on camera. Off camera, they were pure misery. They rubbed his gums raw, caused infections, and combined with his heavy smoking, left him with chronic bad breath. Co-stars noticed, but they were contractually forbidden to mention it. Behind that perfect smile was pain, anxiety, and the constant fear that the illusion might crack. Gable played the ultimate romantic, but he couldn't even eat without wincing. The irony? The very thing that made him the image of male perfection was entirely manufactured. In Hollywood, illusion always came at a price, and if a flawless smile could hide that much pain, what did it cost a teenage girl to keep smiling when she was never allowed to be a child? The starvation diet, Judy Garland. She was just 16 when she became Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, but MGM didn't see a kid, they saw a product. Producers called her chubby and insisted the camera added 10 pounds. From that moment, her life became a lab experiment in control. Breakfast, black coffee, lunch, chicken broth, dinner, a cigarette and a pill. Amphetamines to stay awake, barbiturates to sleep, all handed out by studio doctors, assistants, and even hired guards who watched to make sure she didn't sneak food. Gain weight? You're fined. Look tired? Here's another pill. Her body didn't belong to her, it belonged to the studio contract. On screen, she laughed and sang about rainbows. Backstage, she cried from exhaustion, shaking from hunger. This star diet didn't just wreck her health, it shattered her mind. What followed was a lifetime of addiction. Judy Garland didn't fall apart. They broke her. Slowly, publicly, and with applause. And if Hollywood could push a teenager to the brink while she was still breathing, imagine what they'd do to their stars after death. The corpse cameo. When actor John Barrymore died in 1942, his friends decided to give him one last performance, with him as the star. According to legend, director Raoul Walsh snuck Barrymore's body out of the funeral home, propped him up in a chair at home, and invited their mutual friend, Errol Flynn, over for a drink. Flynn, just back from a party, walked into the room and saw Barrymore, dressed to the nines, staring blankly from the armchair. He screamed, bolted out the door, and later admitted he thought the dead had come back to life. Real? Exaggerated? Depends who you ask. Some say the body never left the parlor. But Walsh, Flynn, and others swore to the story for years, in interviews, books, and probably a few barrooms. And Barrymore? Known for hard living and bigger-than-life antics, he probably would have laughed hardest. In Hollywood, even death could be a performance. And if anyone deserved a final curtain call, it was him. Up next, a death that wasn't staged, but looked like it was written by the devil himself. The Curse of the Misfits. On paper, it was a masterpiece. Arthur Miller's script, John Huston directing, and a cast of icons. Marilyn Monroe, Clark Gable, Montgomery Clift. A story about broken people on the fringes of the American dream. But no one realized the film was about them too. Shot in the scorching Nevada desert, 110 degrees under the sun. Monroe, fragile and spiraling, locked herself in her trailer with pills and vodka. Her marriage to Miller collapsed mid-production. Clift was barely functioning, physically wrecked from a car crash, mentally drifting. And Gable? At 59, he insisted on doing all his own stunts, being dragged by horses, tossed in the dust, baking under brutal heat. 10 days after the final take, he suffered a heart attack and died. Monroe was gone a year later. Clift lasted 5. Too many deaths, too close together. Was it a curse, or just a film that pushed its cast past the breaking point. The Misfits wasn't just their final movie. It was their final message, filmed under a desert sun and soaked in real pain. Coming up, a Hollywood story where engineering met obsession, and a woman's body became the blueprint. Jane Russell and the Bra, built by an aviator. Howard Hughes was known as a genius aviator, billionaire, and movie mogul. But in the 1940s, he turned his engineering skills toward the female chest. While producing the Western The Outlaw, Hughes became obsessed with how Jane Russell's figure looked on film. Nothing was right in his eyes. So he hit the workshop and designed a revolutionary bra. No straps, rigid structure, based on principles of load distribution from airplane wings. He genuinely believed he'd engineered a breakthrough. Russell tried it on and immediately said no. It chafed, pinched, made it hard to breathe. But she was smart. She faked the look using her regular bra and a couple of safety pins. On screen, it was Hughes approved, and he never noticed. But that was just the start. As owner of RKO Pictures, Hughes kept cards on every actress's body measurements and ordered firings if anyone gained too much. He tracked them personally. Ironically, the man who feared touch, wore gloves, and avoided germs, kept obsessive control over women's bodies. Brilliant? Maybe, but definitely a genius without boundaries. And if he engineered a bra for control, what happened when a pregnancy threatened to break the illusion? The secret pregnancy. In 1935, Loretta Young was America's picture of purity, a devout Catholic, a box office star, and one of Hollywood's most wholesome faces. But during the filming of The Call of the Wild, she had a secret affair with her co-star, Clark Gable. He was married. She was under intense public scrutiny. When she discovered she was pregnant, the fallout could have destroyed her career and MGM's reputation. So the studio launched a full cover-up. Young suddenly fell ill, disappeared for several months, and gave birth in secret. The baby girl was placed in a Catholic orphanage. Months later, Loretta quietly adopted her own daughter, Judy, framing it as an act of charity. For the press, it was a sweet story. For the child, it was a riddle with no answer. Years passed. Judy grew up and began to wonder why her ears looked so familiar. They were later surgically pinned back. Just before her death, Loretta finally told her the truth. It wasn't just a secret. It was a sacrifice to protect an image built on silence. One woman kept the lights off to hide the truth. The next one, she made sure every light hit her exactly right. The steel will of Marlene Dietrich. She understood something most stars didn't. In Hollywood, the camera could either be your best friend or your worst enemy. She made it her ally. In every contract, she included a non-negotiable clause: her cinematographer, her lighting setup. She personally dictated where every key light went, how sharp the shadows were, and exactly when her close-ups could be filmed. While others brought makeup artists to set, Dietrich traveled with her own lighting technician, Jean Kornman. She had a signature formula: a soft lens, a key light just above and off to the side, minimal shadows under the nose, and flawless diffusion. The result? Ageless cheekbones, eternal glow. Not a wrinkle without permission. Back then, the studios called it difficult. Today, we'd call it personal branding. She didn't ask for control, she took it. And in an industry run by men, Marlene made light itself her armor. But not every star got to decide when the lights would go down. Some just vanished, with questions left behind. The death of Superman. In 1959, George Reeves, the face of Superman on TV, was found dead in his bedroom. A single gunshot wound to the head. Police called it a suicide, quickly. But nothing about it made sense. Bruises on the body, no fingerprints on the gun, and somehow the shell casing ended up under his back, a rare position for a close-range shot. There were guests in the house, but no one called the police for nearly 45 minutes. Some witnesses later said the room didn't feel panicked, it felt staged. Like people were waiting for the right version of events to settle. Now the twist. Reeves had been in a long relationship with Toni Mannix, the wife of an MGM executive with known mob ties. Rumors said Reeves wanted out, but maybe he wasn't allowed to leave. He was weeks from a wedding, talking about new roles. No note, no goodbye. Just silence, and a list of people who needed this case closed. Superman didn't die in battle. He died in someone's living room. Now, from a tragedy where silence spoke louder than the gunshot, to a feud where even the Oscar became a weapon. High heels and hate. This wasn't just a feud. It was trench warfare in designer heels, and it lasted for decades. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Two studio-era icons, two powerhouse performers, and two women who couldn't breathe the same air without throwing shade. It started with a man. Franchot Tone was Davis's co-star in Dangerous, and she fell for him hard, but Crawford stepped in and stole him away. They were married within months, and from that point on, it was war. By the time they filmed Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, their hate turned physical. Crawford hid weights in her costume so Bette would hurt her back, dragging her across the floor. Bette fired back by installing a Coke machine on set, knowing Joan was married to Pepsi. But the coldest moment came at the 1963 Oscars. Bette was nominated, Joan wasn't. Yet it was Crawford who walked on stage to accept the award on someone else's behalf. That smile, sharper than any line in the script. And when Joan died, Bette delivered the final sting. You should speak only good of the dead. Joan Crawford is dead. Good. This wasn't just a rivalry, it was a Hollywood performance. Hollywood sold dreams, but behind the makeup and flashbulbs, there was fear, control, madness. Which story hit you the hardest? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let us know if you're ready for part 2. Old Hollywood hasn't told all its secrets yet.